YouTube, so everybody knows we're being recorded. There we go. And by tomorrow, we will have this YouTube recording up through the Coalition Facebook page, which is the @CLRN.AR. We'll send out an email contact link to everyone. Once again, we're so glad you're here. We welcome you. I'm Kathy Wells, the president of the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods. This is our Saturday, August the 14th meeting of coalition members and guests. We have here today the mayor of Little Rock, Mayor Frank Scott, and some of his colleagues to talk to us about the proposed 1-cent sales tax increase, which is on the ballot for a special election on September the 14th, 1 month out. In deference to the short limited time with the mayor, he has to leave us in 45 minutes. We've prepared some questions in advance, and we have some volunteers to ask those questions. And then we'll take some questions from the folks who are joining us. We do think we'll have time for that. Let me just briefly ask folks to introduce themselves. Denise, you're with Central High. Tell us about yourself. Just identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Denise Leeson. I'm the president of the Central High Neighborhood Association, and I'm delighted to be with you all this morning. Thanks.
Karen Hart.
Hi, I'm Karen Konarski Hart. I've been on the board of the Hillcrest Residents and Merchants Association since the 90s when they were organized, and I'm here representing our president today.
Welcome. Norman?
Hi, I'm Norman Hodges. I'm president of the Heights Neighborhood Association.
Robert Walker?
I am Robert Walker, and I'm past president of the Capitol View Still Station Neighborhood Association, and glad of it.
Jim Lynch. Jim Lynch, identify yourself. Unmute yourself, Jim.
My name is Jim Lynch. I'm representing Arkansas Community Organizations.
John Hedrick.
John Hedrick, Vice President of the Downtown Neighborhood Association.
George. Unmute yourself, George. George, we can't hear you.
Okay, I'm George Campbell. I live in Quapaw Tower, and I'm a member of the Downtown Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. Bobby and Angela. Unmute yourself. Still muted.
Yeah, the one trick with Zoom, you always hit the space bar and it kind of does a temporary unmute, but it looks like I was hitting space in the chat. Anyway, so Bobby and Angela here. We're part of the Central High Neighborhood Association. Denise is our president, representing the organization. Came here to kind of listen in, ask some questions, and wanted to listen in.
Thank you. Ron Muse.
Ron Muse, representing Forest Hills Neighborhood Association.
Jay Barth.
Good morning, Jay Barth. I'm the Chief Education Officer for the city, but a longtime member of the Downtown Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. Dorothy Wilson. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Belinda Wilson. That's my first name. I go by Belinda. I'm with Wakefield president,
Welcome.
and we're just glad to be on here to hear everything that's going on in the city. Thank you.
Antoine.
Thank you, Kathy. Antoine Phillips, at-large city director, here to hear the questions and hopefully answer a couple. Thank y'all for putting it together.
I'm assuming that the symbol of the city is masking Mayor Frank Scott in person. Is that correct, Mayor?
No, actually, this is Bridget, his executive assistant. He should be getting on any minute if he's not already on.
Okay, we will hope for good things. Scott Holliday.
This is Scott Holliday. I'm the secretary of the Downtown Neighborhood Association.
Okay, LaVale.
I'm LaVale Williams. I'm with the Wakefield Neighborhood Association out in Southwest.
And Dale Picard. Dale, unmute yourself and tell us.
Dale Picard, MacArthur Park area, and I'm just concerned about increasing efficiency in local government.
Okay. And the folks from Brandon House, come identify yourself.
Yes, I am Pam Bax, and I'm the Executive Director of Brandon House Cultural and Performing Arts Center. We're located along the 12th Street corridor and was invited by Kathy Wells to be on the Zoom call. Very interested in seeing how the monies will be spent.
Okay. Well, we have ready to start our questions for the mayor if he's available now.
Give me just 5 minutes. I'm calling to see if he's having an issue getting on. Give me just a minute.
I will pause and we will say how pleased we are. We have this interest in the city. Remember, in addition to the day of the election, we'll have early voting. I hope that you will look that up on the county election website and spread it in your network. As always, these special elections have a very low turnout and very few votes, in fact, decide an issue. So it's important that we educate folks that there is an election coming and that they need to take part in this election that's coming.
Kathy, he is finishing up. He should be on any minute.
Wonderful.
Thank you for your patience. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the chance to visit with him about the questions that have come up in our research.
Are there answers that have been prepared in response to these questions that maybe somebody could read?
We have given no one the questions. They remain amongst the membership. So prepared answers were not possible.
Kathy, if we have questions that aren't addressed today, will we be able to send them in after the fact?
Oh, we'll be delighted to relay them. And of course, you're certainly encouraged to send those directly to the mayor's office. Bridget, are you
and Kathy,
yes.
this is Antoine, and
Yes,
I just want to
Antoine.
respond to that question.
Please.
I know that there, and I'm in the car right now, and I'm headed to the house, and I'll join by video in about 7 minutes. But for any questions that can't be answered today, if you go to rebuildtherock21.com, I believe that is the website. There is a section on there for you to submit questions that are being answered in real time, or as soon as possible, I guess I should say. So if there's questions that are unanswered today, the best way to get those answered is probably through the rebuildtherock21.com website.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Antoine. Mayor is trying to get in. Kathy, he's saying he's
admit him, Denise. Can you admit the mayor, Denise?
He's in.
He's in. Okay, now we just need to unmute the mayor. We still need to unmute the mayor.
I'm unmuted.
Okay, great. Well, once again, welcome to the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods as we question and discuss the proposed 1 cent sales tax, which is on the September 14th special election ballot. I'm Kathy Wells, the president, and we've been introducing ourselves. This is recorded and it will be posted on YouTube tomorrow, and we'll send everyone the email link. It will come up through the Coalition Facebook page at clrn.ar. And in deference to your time limit, Mayor, we got volunteers to ask the questions so we don't waste time recognizing that. And I'm going to start off with a big picture question, which is that this proposed sales tax sunset in 10 years, which would then result in a major loss to operating revenues. And how should that be addressed? A decade ago, they split the vote, so there was a permanent operations tax, which remains today permanently, and there was the capital construction tax, which is the one that sunsets in December of this year. But going forward, it would all end in 10 years. So how are you going to deal with that one?
So first and foremost, Ms. Wells, just want to share my appreciation to you and the Coalition of Neighborhoods for this opportunity to speak with you today. One, as well as I understand that at-large City Director Antoine Phillips is here with us today, as well as Little Rock's first and Arkansas's first Chief Education Officer, Dr. Jay Barth. And again, just want to share my appreciation to everyone for having this opportunity. If I understand your question correctly, is to understand the thought behind how we are proceeding. First, I want to ensure that everyone understands that the City of Little Rock today and when, and hopefully everyone votes on September 14th for the Rebuild the Rock sales tax proposal, we still will have one of the lowest sales taxes within the state of Arkansas, as well as within other regional cities of mid-size and the like. So today, we have a 9% sales tax. On December the 31st, the 3/8 sales tax falls literally on that day from 9% to 8.625%. And so essentially what we are doing, we are replacing 3/8 sales tax, 3/8 sales tax, as well as with a 5/8 cents. But we are, for general purposes, we say replacement penny. Many people don't take time to do that kind of calculation. So I want to make sure everyone understood where we are today, where we plan to go towards the future, assuming residents of Little Rock choose to invest in itself. And so you are correct, 10 years ago, there was a split between both 5/8 and 3/8. We deliberately chose to do, because of how much dollars are represented within the standpoint of understanding the one-time projects that are also associated within general maintenance of our city. We went forward with a 10-year sunset, listened to the community to make that 10-year sunset, and that's the reason why.
Thank you. Matthews, we have a question about the housing.
Okay. With regard to the 20 million being proposed to renovate, repair, and build homes in Little Rock for low and moderate areas, how is it going to be divided between repairs versus new construction? How much is going to be spent on each item?
Yes. So at this point in time, as you all know, from a city board perspective, any contract over $50,000 has to go to the city board from that standpoint. And so essentially what we are passing are allocations, and ultimately each individual spend, quite frankly, within this package, just like in the 3/8 sales tax, have to individually go to the board of directors. And so when you have the allocation, we essentially are appropriating and then matching with the funds. And then what staff prepares to do moving forward is to work the various requests for proposals, requests for qualifications, and depending on the market, that determines the exact dollar amount. So I can give you rough figures, but I hasten to ever give specifics because lumber today is a different price than it will be next year. And so that type of specificity I would not be able to share. And if I did, it wouldn't necessarily be a completely transparent because of different material costs. Here's what I can give you is the big picture for that 20 million. The goal of the 20 million is twofold, is to purchase dilapidated buildings, working with local developers. So the city will not get in the business of development. Very much what we do right now, those are familiar with the community development block grant, CDBG. We work right now where we obtain dilapidated homes, UV homes, of those who are familiar with code enforcement, the red tag homes within various communities. We purchase those homes after we get clean title, and then are able to leverage CDBG funds to renovate, to acquire, and then to match residents who have the opportunity to utilize a housing development voucher. And so that same vein of what we already do today with limited amount of funds, we'll be able to have additional funds through this to do that. So that's number one. Second, piece, we are working and have been working for the last several months with our homeless community leaders, where we will be focusing on transitional homes for those who our brothers and sisters that are experiencing homelessness. And so it'll be twofold, whether it's what we've seen so far with DePaul USA and Jericho Way focusing on duplexes. Then there's different things that we're working on as relates to emergency shelter during winter and hot seasons, and particularly with disasters. And then thirdly, what we're focusing on right now as it relates to transitional housing and tiny homes.
Okay, streets and drainage question again from the Matthews.
Mayor Scott, thank you for this opportunity to ask you a question. Thank you so much. So I got a infrastructure question, more of a point of clarification for me, just looking into it. You're proposing putting more funding into underserved, overlooked areas of the city. That really excites me. I really love to hear that. The point of clarification is more of the current policy that out of all the wards, I don't know for sure, but they all get the same allocation for funding. So if that is a situation that we need to somehow address before doing this, I'd like to know about that. But again, I'm really
You're breaking up.
Oh, can you guys
signal repeat, Matthews?
Oh, is it the AC? Oh, so yeah, I was just hoping to hear about your for the policy for the infrastructure for the overlooked and underserved parts of Little Rock. And the issue is if there is funding that they get distributed among the wards evenly. So I don't know if that's kind of a conflict in that proposed initiative or not.
No, thank you. So here's one I first want to help everyone understand. Again, I love to build context so everyone knows how their tax dollars are working for them today. So today, roughly the city of Little Rock's budget is around $280 million. $212 million makes up what we call basically our sales tax funds, our franchise fees, property taxes, things of that nature. That's our general fund. We also have a street fund, and the street fund is largely comprises of the dollars of the city-county split at the gas pump. So cities receive 15 cents on every dollar, counties receive 15 cents on every dollar, and the remaining 70 cents goes to the Arkansas Department of Transportation. So our 15 cents constitutes somewhere around $80 million. That also includes some continuing bond dollars that were expended, and we still have that a part of the budget. That being stated, in addition to that roughly $80 million, the Rebuild the Rock sales tax proposal includes another roughly $80 million for infrastructure. 40 million of the 80 million will be specifically for by ward, wards 1 through 7, split evenly for street resurfacing, neighborhood streets, and things of that nature. So set that aside over here. The other 40 million will be focused on equity-based areas of the city that have not been historically paid attention to and have been unaddressed, in addition to geographical equity issues. And so what that would mean is, from an equity-based standpoint of areas of our city that historically have not been paid attention to and received as much as it should in regards to having some improvemements, that's largely south of 630, east of 30. Those particular areas, in particular, the Downtown Neighborhood Association area, the Petaway Association, the East End, East Little Rock area, the South End, things of that nature. And so we'll be focusing on those equity-based funds there, in addition to geographical areas. So areas like Ward 3 have traditional and historic drainage issues. Ward 7 has traditional historic flood issues. Ward 5, for instance, there are certain infrastructure things that need to been happening. We've been piecemealing for quite some time. For example, taking Canis all the way to Chenal instead of piecemealing, and to create more economic activity. So it truly has an equity-based approach, both for underserved areas, as well as geographical areas and what they've been experiencing. So we don't have a piecemeal. And so that whole totality of that 80 million will be lumped on top of the existing 80 million that we have right now. So essentially, we'll be having a robust infrastructure standpoint. And if the bipartisan infrastructure bill that has recently passed with 69 votes from the US senators with President Biden, there may be more funds there. We have also have a current, one of the things we set out to do and we should have here in the near future, is an infrastructure study group that's been studying since 2019 to see exactly what are all our needs for our city. Not that we will be able to fund all of those needs, but that we may be able to say that, hey, it's real to really get our city to where it needs to be for the long-term future. We may need to expend $1 billion in infrastructure all across of our city. Not saying that we will even have the funds for $1 billion, but we need to be able to understand the areas. So that's how we understand equity. We understand equity from the unserved, underserved areas, and we understand equity from the geographical areas. And so that's what we plan to do with the additional $80 million.
Thank
Mayor,
you.
can I jump in there real quick, Mayor?
Oh,
Antoine.
You, Director Phillips, because there's some other Director Phillips.
Yeah, thank you. And the only thing I was gonna add, Mayor, is that there's another 5 million, if I'm correct, Mayor, that's for targeted community development that the city board passed back in January that now is incorporated into the Rebuild the Rock sales tax. So areas in Ward 1, 2, 6, and 7 will have even additional money on top of the money that the mayor already mentioned to go to building up the infrastructure in that area. So to the mayor's point, this is very equity driven to address areas in the part of town that hadn't been addressed in the past. So I just wanted to add that to it.
Thank you. And that's in addition to the geographical areas. So it's geographical equity and unserved, underserved equity. And so now, Mr. and Mrs. Matthews, that's technically a total of 85 million that we have associated for infrastructure. 80 million, 40 million of the 80 million is split evenly for street resurfacing and streets and neighborhood streets. The other 40 million is based on unserved, underserved, and geographical equity. And then the city directors passed a resolution early this spring, a resolution to do targeted community development for wards 1, 2, 6, and 7, and 5 million a year. We're able to fund that first 5 million. We with the Rebuild the Rock sales tax proposal. So a total of 85 million on top of the 80 million that we have in our current street fund.
Thank you. We have an early childhood education, Norman.
Thanks. Good to see you, Mayor.
Hey, Norman, how are you?
Early childhood education. I'm doing well, thanks. The early childhood education thing interests me, but I'd like to get a little more specific information about it if possible. The Little Rock School District obviously runs an early childhood education program. There are many private entities that offer the same or similar programs. This is a duplicative program, it seems, in terms of offering opportunity to early childhood education. So what is the population that this presumably would reach that the school district does not reach? And assuming this passes, are any and all applicants going to be awarded the monies? Or is there some selection process? And if so, who runs that? Who makes those decisions as to who gets it? Or is it an open-ended? If you apply for it, you get the money. And then following that, of course, is where do these people go? Do they, I presume the school district would take them, but they would already have the money to pay for it. So they wouldn't need to have the city money, presumably. So it seems to be all of these children would go to private entities. And if that's the case, how specific, what criteria for selecting those entities will the city use?
Sure. Thank you so much, Norman. I'm going to answer briefly to some of your direct questions and then ask that Dr. J. Barr fill in some of those details. And before I answer too, I encourage everyone to please, and if we can definitely get it to Mrs. Wells, the resolution that allocates all of the funds, it actually has verbatim how we intend to spend the dollars for early childhood education line by line. And so that's there. And so what we're going to attempt to do, I know we have a short period of time. I'm going to answer.
We've done that, Mayor. Thank you.
You do have that. So if you'll share
We
that.
got it and we sent it on. Yes, sir. We did that research.
Well, I encourage everyone just to take the time to read it because it's lined out line by line. But quickly, Mr. Norman, I would say, here's what I would say. It's not duplicative. It's actually supplemental. It's actually adding to the existing framework. And quite frankly, it's a strategic partnership with the Little Rock School District, and one of which Dr. Barth Superintendent Poor have been working alongside each other to help develop this, as well as other members of the early childhood education ecosystem, which includes Ms. Tanya Williams, who is the DHS Director over early childhood education. Essential, so that's number one. It's not duplicative, it's supplemental, and it's in a strategic partnership with the Little Rock School District. Number two, within the resolution, it clearly states that within the first 5 years, our goal is to increase the infrastructure, technical assistance, and quality of existing early childhood centers that are in the network that are, let's just say some may be a C+, and we want them to be an A+. And so we fill in those gaps with technical assistance, with training of the existing teachers, because we know there are some federal monies for the next 3 to 4 years through the Biden administration that will pay for vouchers. So the first 5 years, we bring up to code these existing early childhood centers that are in concert with within like the Rockefeller Early Childhood Center with the Little Rock School District, bring them up to code those 5 years because we have this infusion of federal dollars and federal vouchers. So in the second 5 years, we're able to then piggyback and decide if we need to increase vouchers because that cycle is moving forward, but we're still working on that quality system and then providing extra resources to more vouchers from that standpoint. Also, there is a board that will help make those decisions and it will have early childhood education leaders, community leaders, and that's set forth in that resolution that Mr. Wells has, as well as city leaders, community leaders, early childhood leaders, and LRSD leaders. And so that's a part of that concept for that standpoint. So again, what I want you to walk away before Dr. Barr fills in the details, this is not duplicative, this is supplemental. We're working in a very interoperable approach in both state, school district, and city all are on one accord and develop this together so we can continue to ensure that our children, our most precious assets, have a true head start so we can fight against downstream negative effects of our children who do not have adequate educational achievement, which ultimately leads towards what I would say is our negative downstream ripple effects. And then finally, one of the things I often share with individuals who are on the fence about this funding, we pay close to $26,000 per inmate. Data and science show that if a child's not able to read by the time they're in third grade, if they have low developmental issues, that they tend to end dead or in jail. And so my challenge to those who have questions, either we pay now or we pay later. Dr. J. Barr.
Thanks, Mayor. You did a nice job there. And Norman, thanks for the question. I want to just,
if I might interject here, I've read all of that material. I just wanted this to get, the group wanted it to get out so it would be in this
recording
film.
Right.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. So that was what we call an alley-oop. Thank you for that. I'm sorry about that.
Well, I appreciate that, Norman. I do want to just add one thing about the Little Rock School District's great work in this area, and it is great work, but it is heavily targeted at 3 and 4 year olds at present, where this program really puts its emphasis is on infant and toddlers. And as many of y'all likely know, either through friends or for yourself, the Rockefeller Early Childhood Center, fantastic center, starts at 6 weeks of age, and a student can stay in that same school through 4 year olds. They've only got a limited number of infant and toddler slots. And so this would really expand the variety of options, both the Rock School District options across the city, especially south of 630, as well as private providers and giving them the tools they need to be high quality. And then down the line, giving more vouchers to get more of the especially low-income families access to those facilities. Because right now, only about 17% of infants and toddlers who are below 200% of poverty have access to high-quality providers in this community. That doesn't mean they're not in some form of childcare, but we really need to move from childcare to true child development. And that's what we're really focused on, especially for infants and toddlers in this program, because the Little Rock School District does a great job with 4 year olds and a good job with 3 year olds, but we really need a lot more work with infant and toddlers.
Kathy, may I
Jim, very briefly.
join the discussion on childhood? Well, I appreciate the thought and the sort of the aspirational notions of this $40 million chunk of Little Rock taxpayer money. However, I'm bothered by the fact, the question for me is, there's no question that childcare is a problem, but it's a problem everywhere in the United States of America. Childcare is expensive. It's also more expensive, obviously, for families of limited means. But the question is, should city government use its money to solve this problem? When I think of early childhood education, when I think of daycare centers and all that, I frankly think of state government. I've talked to the head of early childhood care at the state government and so forth. They're the ones that regulate the centers. They're the ones that mandate the educational requirements and so forth and so on. If I may say so, without diminishing any effort that's gone into this proposal to date, City of Little Rock has no experience in this area. We don't regulate child care centers. We don't regulate how much education they have to have. We don't have folks that do early childhood development. And now we're talking about 0 to 3. Maybe it shows up, but I didn't go to any early childhood daycare center myself. That was, of course, daycare. That was decades ago. But my point is 0 to 3. Geez, isn't that what parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and everybody else are supposed to do? I mean, are we now to the point where we're having to use money that and maybe this, I'm just old school on city government, but I think of police, fire, parks, picking up the garbage, code enforcement, et cetera, et cetera. That's what city government does. So the question is not that I'm not questioning the community need. I'm not questioning the rationale for, as Dr. Barr says, childhood development as opposed to childhood education. But geez, city government, $40 million to make sure that a kid knows his numbers and his colors by the time he goes to kindergarten. I'm not sure that this is the way to go. The other thing that I've read is that this hugely parallels what I'm reading out of the Biden administration and in the new bill for the Reconciliation Act. I mean, they are going full bore on early childhood education. And I've seen some references to even the 0 to 3 years. So by the time I'm looking at your narrative, by the time 2026 rolls around, when we're supposed to make this decision on vouchers, and we still don't know who's going to get the vouchers. No one has really said to Norman who's going to get these. But it may be that the Biden administration's already taken care of this. Is that not a possibility?
So Jay, because I do want to do an essence of time. I know.
Well, we realize you're limited, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Mr. Lynch, I definitely want to sit down with you and coffee. It's been quite some time since we have done that. You were right. One of the things that my grandfather had told me once we became mayor that your main job is to pick up the trash, put out the fires, and catch the robbers. And that's true. And we're going to do that day in and day out. One of the things we have to understand when you say, geez, my thing is geez, close to 80-90% of the homicides in Little Rock right now are committed by teenagers. And that's a big geez. Literally, we have teenagers that are that have experienced a lot of educational challenges. And we wonder why we have the criminal issues that we have right now. And so when we look at early childhood education, it's not only an educational solution, it's also a new way of looking at public safety. And so I agree with you. We're going to take care of the trash. We're going to take care of our robbers. We got a great capture rate. And so big ups to the men and women in Little Rock Police Department. But we also have to bring forth more tools because criminal activity today is more than just there's so many domestic issues. So that's the reason why we're investing now in mental health. There's so many educational issues. We have to help the men and women on Little Rock. We may have to agree to disagree, but I think it's quite frankly, it is the city's role because people choose to live in Little Rock. And one of the things that they want to focus on is quality of life and place. And they also want to understand educational opportunities. Little Rock is not the first city to make this kind of investment. There are other progressive cities forward-thinking cities, larger cities, and cities that have more increase in their revenue because more people are choosing to live there because of these opportunities. Yes, it's new for the state of Arkansas, but guess what? The community schools model was safe for the state, was first and foremost for the city of Little Rock. And now the legislature is following Little Rock's lead, and they're doing more community schools, focusing on at-risk students in their at-risk schools and providing wraparound services. So yes, geez, and that's the reason why we are focusing on this, so we can have a reimagination of public safety.
Would you please answer Norman Hodges' question about who's going to get the money?
Yes, public school is going to get the money.
What's the criteria for eligibility? He asked that 10 minutes ago.
And it's laid out, but Dr. Barth will do it again.
So the criteria for the job training and technical assistance, that will be pretty heavily targeted.
No, I'm asking
vouchers.
Norman is asking
below 200%
what's the criteria for the voucher.
Mr. Lynch, could you please calm down and let him answer the question, please?
Well, he's not answering the question.
Let's be respectful. Mr. Lynch, let's please be respectful. Please, you got to let him finish the statement.
Yeah.
Below,
Okay, but Jay, what was it, 200%?
below 200% of poverty, and those who are going to higher quality providers, those that are 2- and 3-star facilities as presently denoted by the Division of Early Childhood. That would be the target for the vouchers. So it would be low income, but only low income families that are going to high quality facilities. And that's why we spend the first few years really fleshing out the quality of providers to expand the marketplace. And
can you give us in dollar terms, what's 200% of poverty? A family making 200% of poverty is what?
Well, it depends on the size of the family, but it would
family
be
of 4.
4 would be, Mayor, do you know that? Is it 30?
I think it's 33, 34.
33, 34.
Which, and quite frankly, the median income of Little Rock residents is about 35 to 40,000. So we're not a wealthy city.
Well, actually, the median household income for the city of Little Rock is $51,000. So what you're saying is I may have, if I gave the state number, maybe that's it, but I'm pretty sure it, based on what we're looking at, is federal. It's 30,
federal poverty.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm not going to argue what the exact.
You are arguing the exact, Mr. Lynch, because I gave you the correct answer and you tried to dispute it.
Well, I have
you asked for the federal, Mr. Lynch. You asked
I
for
have
the
the
federal
census data in front of me. And it says
let's Kathy, can you get us back on track, Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
We need to move on. We've got a parking deck question. Dale, would you ask about the parking deck, please?
Sure. You're proposing to spend over $12 million on parking decks to replace the free parking spaces 30 Crossing eliminated. Will the parking in these replacement parking facilities also be free?
That is not we're doing a parking consultant study at this point in time, and I do not expect, many times when we do those type of parking decks, they're tied to bond financing and things of that nature for existing things. The answer would be, I do not expect those parking spaces to be free at this time. And I'm quite frankly, most of those parking spaces during the week were not free anyway, where it's taken up. So I don't see a change. I don't see a change.
We have an indoor sports complex question. John Hedrick.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Scott. The proposed $37 million, 100,000 square foot indoor sports complex would require a large footprint. Question, where would it be located and how would it be used? In other words, available to whom? And looking through the presentation, it shows an increase in revenue in one spot, and it seems to be a greater increase in expense in another spot. Will the facility require an annual subsidy? You could elucidate a bit, please.
And let me ensure that I understand your question. Are you saying, in addition to the funding for the indoor-outdoor sports complex, is one of the questions, will it require additional subsidies? Is that the question? Just want to make sure I understand.
That part, yes. Will it? How will it be available? Who can use it? And where located? And will it require an annual subsidy?
Correct. Thank you. Thank you so much. So the indoor sports complex is a part of that funding. And so the plan is, one, there is some I don't know if we have the slide with us today, but there is, we do plan to create some revenue and parking revenue. So there will be some charges from that standpoint. But just like some of our other public facilities, there are periods of time where they will always be free to the public. But then also there are times where we do have certain tournaments that we do make, they're charging for those particular tournaments. And so that would be the same case for the indoor-outdoor sports facility. The thought behind it is much of our sales tax dollars on every Friday and Saturday and Sunday are exiting our city, where youth sports, our Little Rock families are taking their families to youth sports facilities, whether it's in Bryan, Tulsa, Memphis, Georgia, Dallas, Fort Worth area every weekend. And so the state's capital city needs a youth sports facility. And so the subsidy, I mean, it's all subsidized by sales tax dollars, the whole plan. And so I don't understand that particular question, but what I would share is that we do have the capital funding for it if this is passed, and that it will be added within the existing maintenance dollars that we have within the maintenance budget. Will it require additional subsidy? No, sir. It'll be built in a part of the overall maintenance and operations budget.
And location, Mayor.
And the location, yes, ma'am. Right now, there's not been a firm decision on any location. Again, as I share with members here today, every decision that's over $50,000 has to go before the city board. So that decision has not been made. I try my best to never get out front of our city board of directors because they ultimately have to have the votes to make those things come into fruition. I will say the concept of thought right now, and this is kind of where we think we are headed, subject to members of the City of Little Rock Board of Directors, and I'm hoping, Director Phillips and others will concur. But again, they ultimately make the final decision. We make the proposal, they make the final decision to move forward, and then we implement, being the difference between legislative branch and executive branch. That being stated, the plan or the thought right now is that at least the outdoor portion of the complex will be at War Memorial Park. There's been thought to have both the outdoor and indoor complex, but depending on the topography of War Memorial, there may be a thought of not putting additional concrete there. And so with that being stated, if we do the outdoor portion of the complex at War Memorial, the indoor will most likely be somewhere downtown or in the East End area. Many times when you have an indoor sports complex, you want to be in close proximity to hotels and restaurants for those families. So there's great walkability or definitely a shortened distance of transportation. And so more than likely, that's probably what will happen. But of course, the members of the City Board of Directors will make that. I do know there was original thought of having both at Memorial Park, but there's maybe some topography issues. And so we may split up, having the outdoor area at War Memorial and the indoor somewhere downtown or in the East End.
Can I ask, what is the proposed seating capacity?
I do not, I don't have that specifics, but I can, when we have coffee, Mr. Lynch, and we discuss the difference between federal poverty level and Little Rock's median income.
I asked about the seating capacity of the sports complex.
Okay, now guys.
I just answered you. I said, Mr. Lynch, I just answered, and I think Mr. Wells is determining who asked questions, but
please,
well, you didn't answer the question.
I'll get you that. I said
the capacity of the sports complex.
I share with you, I don't have that information with me right now, but I will get that to you when we have coffee or by phone, whichever one.
Okay, we have a question following up on current operation of parking decks and some other activities that relates to how you're doing now. So you've earned additional sales tax to be steward of. Dale, you have that question.
Yeah, well, Little Rock is providing a free or token charge fire, radio, and 911 services to area communities and business outside Little Rock city limits. What will you do to get fair and reasonable payments for these services?
We always work very hard to get fair and reasonable payments. Mr. Picard, I know that's been an issue of yours. We do provide services to KMAC Village and others, and they do pay their fair share. But I do clearly, I think there's a disagreement with you with what you consider to be fair. But they do not provide a lot of call. They're not hampering our call of service to Little Rock residents, and they're paying their fair share.
Well, I mean, that's really not the way to look at it. It's what it's worth to them. And basically, if they were paying the same thing we're having to pay, they'd be paying $300,000 a year for that fire department service, which really is worth over $1 million. They could not duplicate that for $1 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is the debate point. Karen, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
I had a question back with the War Memorial Park, and it kind of is a more overreaching question, but since you brought that up specifically, will there be interaction with the neighborhood associations, merchants and residents regarding, well, since you brought up War Memorial, that specific project and other things? We are impacted significantly by things that happen, UAMS being the most recent thing, that the city makes a plan to do something. Really, we find out after the fact what's going to happen. It has significant safety, financial, traffic, other kinds of impacts on the neighborhoods that we get no say in until the plan is done. You know, frankly, like I said, War Memorial is one of the first ones. The city also tends to put out plans where it goes one direction, then turns around and goes the other. They made Lee and Kavanaugh and Cedar and Pine direct arterials from one part of the city to the other, then flipped it around and said, well, we need now, you know, traffic circles and ways of, you know, diminishing speed and access to these streets. So kind of wish everybody would get on the same page.
No, thank you so much, Mrs. Hart, on that specific issue with the UMS and Pine and Cedar. Those decisions were, as far as where they would go, those decisions were prior to my administration. Clearly, the funding's already been available and they're moving forward, but that was a decision made prior to our administration. What I will share with you moving, as we continue to move forward, and what we do our best is having community engagement. Community engagement doesn't always mean community agreement. But as you shared, there's no one ever wants to find out anything after the fact from that standpoint. And we plan, I pride myself on community engagement and being accessible to the community and our administration. So yes, there will be a lot of community feedback before anything's done with that revitalization. I do want to share that we have had some tasks that it did include members of the community as it relates to what we do to revitalize not only War Memorial Park and Hyman Park. And so much of these ideas have come from the community. But we also know as things, dirt begins to commence or to be moved, you want to continue to have more conversations. And then finally, again, no decision will be made without city board approval. And so even once we can have all the schematics that we want, the city board still has to vote to allocate these funds to get these things done. So to answer your question again is yes, there will be community engagement.
Thank you. Ron Reese, do you have a question? Unmute, Ron. We can't hear you, Ron. There you go. No, we still can't hear you.
How's that?
That
I'll
works.
pass, thank you.
Okay. Who else has a question? Who's not spoken before? Robert Walker, do you have a question? Okay.
Well, I guess
Scott Hall? I'm sorry.
Well, North Little Rock already has a soccer complex. Why would we want to build another one?
Excuse me?
North Little Rock already has a soccer complex. Why would we want to compete with theirs?
We're not competing with North Little Rock. We are providing much needed services to Little Rock residents. And I think there's a good understanding that many Little Rock residents do not travel to North Little Rock for many of those amenities. So that's the reason why. And our residents have been sharing the need and desire that they are tired of traveling to a Bryant and to a Benton and not to a North Little Rock or to a Memphis or to a Tulsa or Oklahoma City or a Dallas Fort Worth for their youth sports. And so that is the reason we're being responsive to our Little Rock residents and our Little Rock families who have the children that are participating in these sports activities.
Scott Holliday, do you have a question? Okay. We did have an.
Little Rock has already invested over $500 million in the port. Why can't the port be run like a business and be self-sustaining?
The port is run like a business, and I would say it is self-sustaining at this point in time. The times where clearly the city of Little Rock and those city leaders of the community decades ago did the initial bond financing to purchase the additional land at the port. The last time that there was an injection of funds from those decades of getting the port started, my understanding from a historical standpoint was in 2011, where we did the initial $22 million to purchase the land for the port. The port is self-sustaining, but as you know, land is pricey. And so the city has stepped in because the port is an independent agency of the city, is a part of our economic development apparatus. And so we're very excited that we have the return on investment. Amazon just doesn't happen to choose Little Rock. We have to have the community assets available. Little Rock is proud to have river, rail, road, and air. I'm very excited that we've been able to recruit Amazon to choose Little Rock not only once, but twice. We have the last mile delivery service that opened up last summer in Southwest Little Rock with approximately 500 well-paying jobs. We have the 3.5 square million foot facility that's opening up this month, where they're starting out at the gate with somewhere around 3,000 jobs, with the expectation that by the latter part of this fall, that they will more than double to close to 7,000 in jobs that will be available. And so we're seeing close to, by the end of this year and first of next year, close to 10,000 jobs just in Little Rock. But also from a regional perspective, they're building another fulfillment center in Galloway, not too far from the Port Authority, but in Galloway, Arkansas. That's a 1 million foot facility. They have a small drop facility in the East Village area and another area in North Little Rock. So we have 5 Amazon operations with thousands of jobs, both already operating and planning to increase 2 that are coming right to our city. And there's a good chance that if we all know the history of Little Rock, the leaders in the past allowed Fred Smith and FedEx to leave. I think we got a great opportunity. Amazon sees exactly what Fred Smith and FedEx saw. And now that we have 5 central locations, I would not be surprised. And I'll tell you this, we're working very hard for the possibility of the Amazon Air. And so we want to continue to focus on how we grow this city. And so I think one of the great assets in bringing those type of companies, but it's not just Amazon, it's HMS Manufacturing that's located. It's Alleviant Health, it's Costco, it's Trader Joe's. We've been on historic job growth the past 31 months with net positive close to 5,000 new jobs to our city over the last 31 months. We're going to keep leaning in.
Yeah, it would be good if Amazon.
Let's conclude that discussion. I know that our time is getting short, and I have a context question myself for the mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I was looking at your budget numbers, and I saw that the 3/8 cent for capital projects that expires in December basically is bringing it in 20 million a year the last couple of years. It's been climbing over the decade, of course. And compare that with the annual total sales tax revenue of 108, or the total general revenue number of 200 million, or another number that you combine with some other revenues for a total operating funding of 268 million. So in the unpleasant to think situation that you lose the vote and you lose the tax in December, curious to know what kind of offset money you might use to make up part or all of that revenue, that 20 million. You've got your 7 million unexpected revenue to date and counting, which is good news. You've got the federal COVID relief money, which is very welcome. And you've got, of course, you remember, I keep on pointing this out, the 10 million the 10 million reserve rainy day fund. So what would be the makeup offsetting resources you might consider using?
Again, well, thank you for that context. I need to build on top of your context because we're roughly around 280 million. That I think that delta of 12 million has a lot to do with some differences in short-term notes, surpluses, as well as some other funding that you may not be sharing and just may not have privy to. But roughly, we're around 280 million. What I do want to share with you, so everyone should understand. So a couple different things. That 3/8 sales tax, that's somewhere around, I think it's technically about 25, 26 million, but give or take of the year and what's going on, I think the net average is, you're correct, around 20 million. That's all one-time funding. So the 3/8 sales tax was one-time capital projects that were already associated. So we would lose that 20 million. It would not bring forth a dramatic or drastic financial scenario to our city at all. It would not. So I want to ensure, I don't want to ever paint the picture that it will be doomsday. What you should understand is that you have a mayor that has a strong finance background, and that's a mayor that's not afraid to make unpopular decisions that are the right decisions. So one of the first things that I was able to do is cut the budget within the first 4 months of my administration, because I looked at the books and there were some interesting things that were going on. And we were able to correct those things, and we cut the budget about $5 million. Who would have known that we would go through not only a historic flood a couple months after that, but who would have known that we would be heading into a pandemic? And so those financial decisions that we've made, and quite frankly, we've cut the budget close to $20 million since I've been in office 31 months. So I wouldn't be asking residents to choose to tax themselves if we didn't have our fiscal house in order. And we've been able to increase our reserve in 31 months. When I got in office, it was somewhere around $17 million. It's close to 30 or $31 million because we made those significant cuts. We've been good fiscal stewards, and we weathered the storm of the pandemic. And so with that being stated, we're in a good financial position. Here's the reason why we pursue this tax. If we lose that $20 million, again, it'll be fine. But here's the horrible thing. We'll just be status quo. We will just be status quo. And we didn't run for office to be status quo. We ran to unite, grow, and transform our city. And we don't want to be status quo. And we'll continue to have residents who are seeking other areas because we're not providing quality and life and place amenities here in our city. That's the new economic development model. I'm a millennial. Millennials and those coming behind me being Generation Z, we are deciding where we want to live first. Then we are concerned with our career. Our elder brothers and sisters that are determining where they want to retire, they have the same mindset as millennials and Generation Z. They are determining where they want to retire and age friendly based on quality and life and place. And so we have to continue to start growing and not existing, and not to be in a period of stagnation. And that's the reason why we do it, to take our city to the next level. As I often tell people, we are the state's capital city. We're 202,591, but which is great for us to finally cross that 200,000 mark. And kudos to our U.S. Census team that worked to really get those residents out, which we were able to do. And I'm grateful for our team that did that. But during the day, we are the size of a Nashville. We go close to 300,000 Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. with a ton of responsibilities that we have to continue to provide, as Mr. Lynch shared earlier, to take out the trash, to put out to catch the robbers and put out the fires because of those extra those things. And so we got to continue to take it to the next level. That's the reason why we want to do this. And so no, it will not be drastic if it fails. But it will be status quo, and nobody wants status quo because that means we're not growing as a city. We want to grow in a very managed way. We want to grow and address issues as we move forward, from education to infrastructure, affordable housing, homelessness, public safety, and quality of life and place with our parks. So that's the reason why from that standpoint. But I'm grateful that we've made some very sound financial decisions that will be okay. We've been able to do it. But we really will not be able to take it to the next level, as I know we all want to see.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Let's remind everyone this is recorded, and tomorrow it will be up on YouTube. The link will be through the Facebook page of the coalition at clrn.ar. We will email out that link to everyone that I have an email for. Clearly, you got the Zoom invitation from me, so it's looking pretty promising on that. Thank you again, Mayor.
Well,
We know that
and
your
Miss-
time is limited.
And Miss Kathy Wells, one of the things I want to share, and I don't take anything for granted. And I'm not saying we're going to all agree on the total package. I know, and I'm sincere, Mr. Jim Lynch and I, that's not the first time we engaged that way. He's a dear friend and a great leader in our city. And I want to commend him for his advocacy and his leadership, his long tenured leadership in our city and being a community leader. And I just want to make sure I want anyone, that's just kind of how Mr. Lynch and I roll. And we'll have coffee and we'll do the same thing in a local Starbucks, and people think that we're yelling at each other, but we're really not. So I just want to make sure that's clear. But one of the things that I want to also share is that I never take anything for granted. As your mayor, I am asking each of you to choose to support and vote for this Rebuild the Rock Penny Replacement Initiative on September the 14th. I'm asking for your vote. If you want to continue to unite, grow, and transform our city and take it to the next level and for us to be the best version of ourselves, this is our opportunity. And I'm sincerely asking everyone's vote, whether it's Mr. Robert Newcomb, Dale Bakar, Scott Holliday, Dorothy Wilson, City Director Phillips, Jim Lynch, John Hendricks, Mr. George, Mr. Robert Walker, Mr. Norman, Ms. Karen Hart, Mr. Robert Muse, everyone here, the Matthews family, Dr. J. Barth, Ms. Wells, and Mr. Scott as well. I'm asking for your vote. Please vote early on August the 31st is our day of early voting. If you want to have more information, please go to rebuildtherock21.com. It's also on Facebook at Rebuild the Rock, Instagram at Rebuild the Rock, Twitter at 21Rebuild. Everyone has my direct email address, which is fscottjr@littlerock.gov. Everyone should have my personal cell or at least my work cell. It's not hard to get in touch with me. And that being stated, again, I just want to ask for your sincere vote and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you again for participating.
Thank you.
Kathy, can I make a statement?
Please, yes, George.
We lost that taekwondo tournament of 20,000 people coming in here because we didn't have the facilities anymore to handle it. That doesn't mean it won't come back. And I learned a long time ago, you got to spend money to make money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supporter. Okay.
Well, if I may, Kathy, may I?
Okay, Jim,
You
yes.
brought up the issue of the taekwondo sports. The point, it's now, this conversation has been very interesting because now it appears that the rationale for this sports complex is that we need to compete with Tulsa, Dallas, Memphis, and whatever. This brings up echoes of the arguments that we needed an arena. We finally built an arena, but guess what? The county government built the arena, not Little Rock City taxpayers. The county government has a deeper sales tax than we do. Our sales tax brings in $55 million a year. The county sales tax brings in $85 million a year. And so if the point is that folks from the south side of the county won't go to North Little Rock to play soccer, then maybe county government ought to pay for a sports complex.
Always a classic debatable point. Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lynch. And again, I want to reiterate, everyone, please consider to vote for this tax on September the 14th. And I'm greatly appreciate each of you.
Pleased to hear from you. Good to get it all out there so people can think about it for themselves. That is the goal of the coalition.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
really serve to research and distribute good information.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
Thank
you.
you again.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, Mayor. Thank you all for participating. As I said before, this recording will be up on the YouTube channel tomorrow, and you'll all get the email with the link. Please do persist with particular detailed questions to that campaign website and in emailing. And when you do that, feel free to share question and answer back to the coalition. And we will share that through our Facebook page so that we can distribute all the good information that we can lay our hands on. That is what we like to do. Does anyone have any other kind of business before we conclude the meeting? Then I will say that the meeting is concluded. We can stop the recording. Thank you, Denise.